Hi, this is Matt Slauson. Hello. I just built a new setup so I could video over my lathe a little bit easier, and I'm going to try this out on my iPad. I'm videoing off an iPad, which does pretty darn good video, and because the camera is reversed, I can see what I'm doing at the same time without a monitor. So, what I thought I would demo is making flute pad grommets. So here's a right-hand section from an open hole flute. I think it's an Armstrong. I just grabbed it out of my pile of stuff. And so if you're not familiar with the Delrin grommets that are made by a number of different suppliers. So here's a production-made Delrin grommet by one of the suppliers. And they're fairly affordable, but they're actually very easy to make yourself if you have a lathe. So I'm going to walk through the process of how I do that. So there's a production one. And I already practiced this so I wouldn't mess up the video too bad. There is a black Delrin one. So if you were going to use some of the pads that are different colors, a black one might look kind of cool. You can use black Delrin, white Delrin. There's a natural colored Delrin as well. So it doesn't really matter. It's all the same thing. Delrin is a plastic. It's also, Delrin's a trade name. It's actually acetyl is what it is. So one of the reasons to use the Delrin plastic grommets is that number one, they don't split like some of them. So they don't torture the chimney as badly as some of the metal grommets. Some people will tell you that they change the sound a little bit. Delrin actually has some memory, so you can get a nice tight seal. So you drill it slightly undersized, and then when you press it on the chimney, it seals very nicely. So that's an added benefit. And the other reason for making your own is you can create wider diameters. You can create offset so that you get a certain amount of pressure against the pads. You can do custom depths, whatever. So I'm going to walk you through that. So there's what we're doing. So the first thing I do with most projects, and you probably can't see this, I'm going to get the light away from it a little bit, I think. Okay, I do a sketch. So I take measurements with my dial caliper. Some measurements are really important as far as getting the right sizes, and some of them aren't so important. So I reverse engineered the production grommet, and I measured the diameters. I determined that the hole size that I needed to drill was 5/16, and I measured the offsets for the grommet is shaped like a top hat, so I measured all the offsets I needed. And then the other thing I did was I measured my actual tool bit, because I'm not going to measure each one. I'm going to use the dial indicator on my ways of my lathe so that I just re-zero it and do the cuts that I need. So I'll walk you through that. So first step I'm going to do is center drill and drill the piece of Delrin so that I can get about 5 grommets, because you need 5 for a set. So there's the center drill. And I have a quick change tool post, and I have lots of extra tooling for my lathe because it makes it easier. So I'm going to drill in about 2 inches. So if you figure that the grommets by my measurement were 0.142, my tool bit's about 80 thousandths, so that gives me about 0.2 something, 0.222. So around that to 1/4 of an inch. I need 5 of them, so I need 1 1/4 inches worth of turned down Delrin to make 5 grommets. So that's just rough measurements. So I'm going to drill this about 2 inches deep. And all I'm doing is looking at the numbers on my tailstock quill. And so I got it started. And I'm looking at the numbers on my tailstock quill here, and it's at 1/2 inch. So all I'm going to do is bring my drill up so that the cutting edge of the drill is right at the front edge of the material. And then, so I need to go 2 inches. So there's 2, and there we go. So the depth is drilled. So that's the first step. So I'm going to take that out so I don't accidentally bump my hand against it. So the next thing I need to do is I'm going to pull enough of the stock out of the chuck. And a little too much. I'm going to go to about there. So I've got enough of the stock out that I should be able to cut about 5 grommets. I can bring it out a little more if I don't. So one of the things I did, I'm going to try to show this, hopefully, show this. This tool bit is cut to be both a parting tool and a tool that will cut from right to left. It's showing a little bit backwards, so there's my dog, that's Wilbur in the background there. Dogs come up, so he's one of the shop dogs. So anyways, this tool bit is made to cut from right to left. I ground it so that the front edge has a little angle on it. And the reason for that is when I go to part off the grommet, if I have a little angle, it will part off so that the grommet comes off without leaving a burr on the edge, hopefully. So that's why I do this. So I'm going to use just this one tool to do all the cutting and the offset cutting and the parting. So there's the, again, so you can see it, there's the tool bit. So my first step is I need to get this to a measurement of 0.452 in diameter. So I use my cross slide dials. I don't have vernier scales on my lathe. Someday I will, but I don't, so I use the dial. So I'm going to take a cut and look at the measurements and then set my dials so that I can get it to 452, the diameter I want for the grommet. And then I'm just going to cut enough of it that I'll be able to get 5 grommets out of it. So my lathe has what is called a friction clutch, which is, you can see, I'll put it down here so you can see. So right down here, this is a type of a power feed. So I use power feed because you can get really nice smooth cuts using the power sleeve. I have the gearbox over here set up to a fairly slow feed rate. And again, I'm going to just cut this till I get about 2 inches of material cut. And then I'm going to take the measurements and set my dials so that I can get it down to close to 0.452. And again, that's not really a critical measurement. So I'm going to get it close to that. So there I've got probably okay, so that's about 2 inches. I didn't move the dials when I backed it out. I need 452 as my measurement. Oops, I gotta get my caliper, I'm at 475, so 5.2 would mean I need to be 23 thousandths of an inch in a little bit more. So I'm going to turn this in 10, 20, 3 thousandths. And I'm actually going to zero that because I want to be able to come back to that and get the measurements I need for the step over. So I'm going to cut this down again. I'm giving a little chatter because I came too close to the diameter, but that's okay. So I've got this. Okay, so I've got it down to the diameter I want. Should be pretty close, and plastic gets a little fuzzy, so let's clean that off. And just take a quick measurement and see what I got. And I wanted 452, I'm 4535, so that's plenty close enough. All right, so the next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the shoulder on this for the grommet. And so the shoulder depth on this grommet is the overall depth of the grommet is 142. So the overall thickness of that grommet overall, there to there, is 142. So I need to get the shoulder right. I measured the shoulder and it's 27 thousandths. So from this face over, I need 115 thousandths. So that's the long and short of it. All right, so 115 thousandths is my number. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this dial indicator on the ways of my lathe to measure the offset. And I'm just gonna keep re-zeroing this to do it each time. So I need two numbers I gotta remember, 115 thousandths for the step, and then the overall is 142, but then I gotta accommodate the thickness of my cutting tool, which I measured, which is 80. So the two measurements I gotta keep remembering is 115 and 222 thousandths. Two measurements, that's it. So I'm going to place that on the ways of my lathe. I'm going to come over here, and the diameter of the grommet isn't that critical as far as the material that you leave here, because there's a pretty wide variety. So what I want to do is get it, so the shoulder is, the hole I drilled is 5/16, which is 3.3125. So I got to be bigger than 3125, and then small enough that it'll fit in the hole without putting pressure on the pad. So let's see. The original grommet measures about 349 thousandths, so 349, 350. So I'm at 452 minus 350, so I gotta take off 0.1. So I'm gonna actually go a little further than that because I want it a little thinner. So I'm reading my dials. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And I'm gonna do 110. And I'm just gonna take a practice cut just to make sure. Oh, sorry, it didn't zero. I thought it was still zeroed, so it wasn't. Oh, there's my zero. My mistake. So back to taking off another 100. It is 5, 10. All right. So I'm going to take off, just do a little practice cut. So there it is. There's my practice. Do a little measuring. Yep, and I'm 351, so we're plenty close enough on that. All right, so I've got my 2 measurements that I need, and I'm gonna take my cross slide dial and zero it, so I keep coming back to that same diameter. So I'm zeroed right there. All right, so I got my tooling set up, and like anything, the preparation takes longer than what you're actually doing. So I'm going to part that off flush. I'm going to come back to my 0 on my cross slide. I'm going to zero my dial indicator. My first measurement is 115 thousandths, so I'm going to go in 115 thousandths, and I'm just watching the dial. Back it out. I'm going to go over to 222 as my other measurement. I'm going to use the end of a drill bit to catch this, and I'm going to part it off. So there's my first grommet. So first grommet. And I'm just going to do it hopefully 5 more times. So because I parted off, I already got my 0. So I'm going to back this out. I'm going to dial it up to my 0 again. There it is, right there. Zero my indicator. And do it again. There's my 115 right there. Back it out. Go over to 222. Cut. Back to my 0 point. On the cross slide, zero my indicator. Read again to 115. Back it out. Go to 222. Okay. Zero my cross slide again. Zero my dial indicator. Back it out. Go to 222. Ta-da. That's 3, I think. 0, 0. So there's my 4th. Zero my last slide again. 0 my indicator. Back it out. 222. Part it off. So, in a matter of, according to my camera, I've been doing this for 21 minutes, and most of that's been me yapping too much. So there's my 5 grommets, and if you'll notice, there's a little burr on that. My hands are disgusting, and because of the way I ground the tool bit, it breaks right off. So there's one of my grommets, and then of course next thing is, do they fit? And so there you go, nice and snug. So there's the 5 grommets for that. So there you go. So it took me about 15 minutes to take the measurements and figure out my drawing, and it took me, so I'm going to say it took me 45 minutes to do this entire thing while I was trying to do the video and set up and all that kind of thing. In real life, if I were to do this, this would take me probably a total of 20 minutes to make the first 5, and I could probably make 20 or 30 of these in less than half an hour. So once you're set up, it's pretty easy. So that's making flute grommets. So there we go. Time to go. My compressor just went on.